So how? Here's our swales, very simple, but also very simple techniques, rock lines. So you go out, pick up the rocks, put them in a line in a grid, so when the water flows, it hits the rocks, it slows it down, it drops the sediments and silts, and then that over time will build the soils up in that area by stopping overland water flow. From an agroforestry technique, transitional measures, so we have places, they're degraded. I can't, even with Raktamachat, when we start, there's nothing. They did corn agriculture. After they harvested the corn, it was under contract, so the contractor came in and plowed the field. So the first day that I walked onto Raktamachat, it's completely plowed, but they didn't plant anything. So I bought the most devastated place. It looked really bad. So transitionally, I can't get it to be like this in one day. So we have to look at techniques that we can walk it into some sustainability. So integrated farming is a way to do that. So we can integrate tree crops and farming crops. So here, while we're waiting for our trees to grow, we can still do our crops. And remember, in the tropics or drylands, it's too hot, and the temperatures, so the trees can help to provide shading for our delicate crops, vegetables that we like to eat. So we can see a schematic and actual working on that. Trees will support the crops, and they can also produce an additional income. It's very important if we go to tell a person, you know, you should stop doing this agriculture that you're doing now. It's not right. It's not sustainable. I know about sustainability. You should stop. But if you can't give them a technique that can support their family with cash, how can they change? So a lot of times farmers have cash flow problems. So we have to give solutions that allow them to have a cash flow while they're waiting on the transition. So transitional agriculture tied to cash flow. And that's when we talked about the food forest, it was very important that we were able to have legumes that would provide nitrogen and mulch, but we also needed something the legume could give to us, like food, or something we could sell. So here, acacias are a great way to do this. Acacias are really nice here. We have them on our driveway, really large seed pods. Any type of herbivore will eat the seed pod, and the seed pod has sugar in it, which helps with the digestion. So we get shade, we get mulch, and we get a food source. So these are reasonings for looking at different types of trees. So here's some terraced slopes, which we can call terraced farming. So terraced slopes slow down overland water flow, and instead of being washed away, the nutrients can accumulate on the next level, whether that's in South America or actually a picture there in China. And rock catchments. Rock catchment is an area developed from a rock outcrop to catch and concentrate rainwater runoff into storage structures. Some people also call these sand dams. So in a lot of dryland situations, there's access to a lot of rocks. So with just a little bit of cement, one pickup truck full of cement, I can go collect rocks and make a dam, a very small dam. What will happen is, as the overland water is coming, it picks up sands and silts. And when it hits the small dam, the sands and silts drop. And over time, that fills up. So now it's a wedge of sand. So when the next waters come in, they soak in. Then I can come and plant into there. So going down the wadi or gully, putting in lots of small dams, slowing down the overland water flow is a very appropriate strategy. So in this instance, here's another example of that. So in arid and semi-arid lands with large rock outcrops or a lot of runoff is generated after rains. The development of rock surfaces into catchment or runoff can be harvested and then stored for domestic or livestock. And this will alleviate water shortages. So most of the time in these situations, you would go, and the biggest thing that you'd have a problem with is there's not enough water. So even if I have my seeds, what do I do? So water solutions, trying to harvest water in arid lands is one of the first techniques that we're going to look at. And when we do that, slowing the water down, because it does rain, but it's going too fast. If we can slow it down, then we can store it. So again, the sand dam here. The most cost-effective method of water conservation in dryland environments. They provide an impoverished, local, and reliable source of water for communities living in remote or rural areas. So very difficult to get there. I can't bring in many materials, but I could get in, for instance, a ute with some cement powder, and with locally available rocks, we can start to slow down the overland water flow. You could, in certain areas of dryland situations, still use earthen dams if it's not too sandy. So an earth dam being built with compacted earth, the dam's built in the shape of a wedge or an embankment. And we can use any locally available materials, again, to do this, whether they're rocks and clays. So you can have a mixture of rocks with clay. Moving into more small-scale water harvesting techniques. So these are small-scale solutions. Again, something that I could come to a village, and if I go there, sure, I want to see what you're doing, but if I want to help, what do you bring to them? A camera? Pictures? Put their picture on the internet? Really? I find it really funny when they have like, what is it, like aid workers, and they go to Africa, and then they're in the camp, and of course they're there with all their cameras, and then it's really funny. You see them, and they put a picture of themselves, right, up, and they're holding the little baby, and all the little kids are carrying all their equipment. Is that really weird? What's going on there? So what if we went there and you had a way to make a toilet? You had a way to harvest water. You had a way to show them how to cook with more fuel. These would be things that we could bring. So we go, but we also have technology. Small, slow solutions, appropriate technology. And instead of just going and saying, well, I'm here. Okay, that's good. So small solutions could just be water tanks. Remember we saw the one with ferro cement. So again, very simple, sand and a cement bag. I can hold water. I can teach that to a 12-year-old child, and they could do that and replicate it after I left. If we had more money, maybe an NGO, we could buy plastic or steel tanks. That would be nice. So if we don't have that money, cement is appropriate. If we do have it, this is a longer term and maybe more sanitary appropriate solution. Also, underground water tanks is very, very appropriate. Here they have high evaporation rates. It's so hot and sunny that you're going to evaporate the water. So we try to store water underground. And a way to get the water out from underground can be as simple as a fish tank pump. So that simple fish tank pump is able to pump water up 3 meters. It only takes 60 watts. So one solar panel with one fish tank pump allows me to pump water. That can really change the ability for a lot of people, because a fish tank pump could pump water 200 meters if there was no head pressure, right? So instead of having to carry water every day, I'm able to pump water with just one solar panel and a fish tank pump. These are types of solutions that might be really cheap, inexpensive, and more applicable for permaculturists to use. Here's a whole house solution. So if we were in a city and we might have a need for water, because lots of people in urban environments buy their water from the government, which is fine. It's a business, right? But why can't we catch the water from our own homes? Our homes are catchment. We have a roof. If we put gutters, we're able to catch the water. So then if we are able to catch the water, we can think about what can we do with it? How do we catch it? How do we use it? So underground tanks. Some very, sorry, the thing's a little bit off-centered there. I'm not sure what's going on. But this is called a ziri pot, which comes from India. So they take a clay pot. So the clay pot is not fired. So therefore, it's not waterproof completely. So they bury the pot in their garden. So if you walk in their garden, they may have a pot every meter. Then they fill the pot up with water, and it soaks out slowly. So the plant roots grow, and then they can pull the moisture from the pot. So I only have to water that pot. I fill the pot up every 3 days, or maybe every once a week. So it lessens my water and evaporation just by having a clay pot and planting plants next to the clay pot. Other things, as we discussed, you could either raise up or dig down. So small scale solutions, sunken beds. So here I go in, it's flat, not very good. I'll dig out and make a raised bed. I walk on the path. The path is raised. The bed is sunken. Then I can put in mulch, and it helps to retain moisture. So if it does rain, it doesn't run off. So if you do this, this will allow you to regenerate naturally areas that have typically, in these areas, we see overgrazing as one of the major problems in drylands. The lack of vegetables, people rely on animal systems. They overgraze the animal systems till there's basically no vegetation left. Now they have no vegetation for, say, vegetables or herbs, and the animals have nothing to eat. It's a very poor situation. So good fences is a concept in these areas. If we can use fences to basically keep the animals away, they won't come to eat my garden, for instance. So good fences make good neighbors, but the land actually will thank you, because we can help to regenerate properties by better animal control, specifically domesticated herbivores. So here we go, thinking about like old school solutions. So we have bison, for instance. They created plains. So if we were in North America, we could see bison and Indians following bison. If we're in Africa, we see other types of herbivores that were in a more normalized situation. So if we can reintroduce these types of more not domesticated but naturalized systems, they counteract the problems of overgrazing. And you do that by designing a grazing system that allows the animal to move. They're herding animals. They have a predator-prey relationship. So there's a lot of people in North America now that they're reintroducing the predators. So they had gone in before and they shot all the wolves. They shot all the coyotes. They shot all the bobcats. They shot all the panthers. They shot everything. Anything that would kill a cow, shoot it. Finally, there's nothing. So the cows, what do? They just sit there. There's nothing they're going to come kill a cow, right? Just stands. It compacts the ground. Now that they introduced the predator-prey relationship, it's making them move, right? The grasslands grow back. So currently there's a waiting list to get bison in the U.S. People are going away from cows to move to bison.